Thank you all for being here with us. I think it's safe to say, as people trickle in, we have people from all over joining us. Bellingham, Washington, Trinidad and Tobago, Mexico, Jordan, US, Aruba. Excellent, excellent. So great to see you all here. I see some familiar faces. If you all don't know myself, I am Hannah. I'm a program manager at the UP Center for Executive Education. And just a big warm welcome to all of you from all over the world. This is not surprising. Most of our courses bring together people from all corners of the globe with all levels of expertise, all different professional sectors doing all different things. So this is fairly normal for us. I see some of you in our Global Leadership Diploma program as well. So huge welcome to everyone. And I thought I would just start off with a bit of an introduction to the University for Peace. Again, some of you might know this information, but if you don't, if you're a newcomer, I'd love to just give a bit of an overview as to who we are and what we do here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see. All right, if I can get a thumbs up, you can all see my screen. Excellent. Okay. First and foremost, I think most of you are already on top of this, just an invitation to turn your camera on. I know that it's been a year and a half of pandemic and we're doing a lot of things virtually and continue to do so, but as long as we can try to replicate kind of this face-to-face environment, I'd say let's go ahead and do so. This session will also be interactive, so wonderful to connect with people face-to-face. So please go ahead and do that. If you can't, completely understand as well, but if you can, go ahead and do so. And the University for Peace is an institution that was established in 1980 by the United Nations General Assembly. It's a really unique, wonderful place to be, to study. And if you ever have the chance to come to Costa Rica, we more than welcome you to come join us. But it's essentially an institution that was founded basically to train leaders and future generations of people to tackle really big societal problems like equality, like climate change, human rights violations, all of these really big pressing issues of today. And the UP Center for Executive Education, which is the organization that is running this session, we take that mission of wanting to provide a more just, more peaceful, more tolerant world, but we localize it a little bit. We believe that everyone has the power to make a difference in the world, to have positive impact. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's simply a matter of providing you with the correct skills, tools, mindsets, and of course, networks to be able to have that positive impact that you want to have on the world today. So this session itself is about building effective teams. Some of you might be leaders of teams. Some of you might be working within teams yourself, and you want to simply make sure that you're doing your part to make sure that things run smoothly. But I think the impact that you have in supporting your team in its level of growth, how effective it is, creating this kind of cohesive culture where individuals really feel more engaged and understand their role within the team, it's extremely important right now, especially within a lot of these team changes that are happening due to people coming back on site after lots of time at home and completely working virtually. And we know that this is really pivotal to an organization's success. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jason Igani and Gabe Abella, our facilitators for this session. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for the introduction. Gabe, you there? Oh, there you are. I see you. All right. Colleagues, it's a pleasure to have you on this session today. And we're excited to speak a bit about the work that we do in the field of team development, speak also about the learning journey, learning experience that we'll be facilitating starting in November through the UP's platform. We'll get into all of that. What we're hoping to do today is give you a basic sense of the conceptual framework that guides our work and how that looks in practice to some degree. We're not going to spill all the beans today. You're going to have to take the course for that. But we are looking forward to engaging well in a conversation around the conditions that allow for teams to operate effectively and why that matters. Gabe, you wanna throw in your 2 cents?
No, I think I like your approach. Let's not spill the beans right away. I think there's a lot to unpack, even just that statement you just made around the conditions. But really just am honored to be engaged with this amazing group in the UP Center and looking forward to our time together over the coming weeks.
Awesome. Colleagues, what we'll do is we are hoping to have much more of a conversation with all of you than a one-directional presentation. So we'll just make a deal with you all. Number one, if we pose a question, don't hesitate. Just throw your hand up. We'll call on you. Second of all, we'll only call on you if you have your video on because we want to see your face. All right. So that's the deal. All right. So we want to start with one question. We want you to draw from your own individual experience up until this point. As you can see, we have here the question, what are the essential conditions for team effectiveness? I want you to think about your experience, either as a team leader or as a member of a team. And I want you to share one thing that you felt was critical to the success that you had. Implied in this question is also the assumption that you've had positive team experiences. So let's hope that most of you have had an experience working on a team that felt effective, that got the work, it got the work done. So I'll just call on a few of you. What is one thing that you would attribute your success as a team to? Raise your hand and we'd love to hear from you.
So I'm already seeing stuff in the chat as well.
All right, Don Miguel Tello.
Muchas gracias. A clear shared purpose.
All right. Excellent. Let's keep it going. Who anything else? Yes, Carrie Ann.
Carrie Ann.
Hi guys, hi everybody. So for me, it's ironic I'm in this presentation now because I'm going to be discussing this in the context of DEI next week for some academicians. So wish me luck. But for me, it was definitely the value of authenticity and holding authenticity up as a pillar for teams, because everybody comes with talents and strengths. And so to be your own authentic self was something that was celebrated in one of my very successful teams. So authenticity would be my thing.
So Carrie Ann, authenticity, and what I'm also hearing is kind of the practice of celebrating or the permission to bring your full authentic self. Is
Yes.
that kind of implied?
Yes,
Okay.
You're on it, Jason. Exactly.
Sweet. So let's just put permission. Okay, excellent. Andrea Christie. Andrea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Honesty.
Yeah, I find that when you are honest with the information, whether your limitations or your strength, once you're honest about it, it tends to get the responses or support from the team members.
Beautiful. Thank you, Andrea. Sermoya. You're muted.
Oh, hi. Yes, sorry about that. Pleasant good day, everyone. I think the success of a team is really based on commitment to the goal. I think all members need to understand their role and really buy in, because we find that when the leader just brings ideas and things of that nature and no one else gets an opportunity to share their concerns, or as the previous person spoke about, being authentic and being able to be a part of the vision, it tends to have some strain. It will just be I lead, you follow, and it's not a team commitment to the goal.
Excellent. Thank you, Samoya.
Thank you.
So we'll take two more, Vivian and David. Vivian, love to hear. All right, Kingsley, all right. You got in just in time. Vivian.
Okay, yes. Hi, how you doing? I've been working in teams for a long time, more than 30 years, but currently I'm head of a team. But what I can envision for the long term is unselfish collaboration and professionalism.
And professional. Two words that definitely deserve to be unpacked, but we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Vivian. David, all the way from Bellingham.
Yes, I'm going to say trust, but a word before trust is visceral trust. And I'll explain briefly. I think, and it connects with what Carrie Ann said, I think too, like permission to bring our full selves. So when I show up and I'm a little bit vulnerable and I feel supported, then that visceral trust gets built. And I think that can keep amping up.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, David. Kingsley, close us out.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
For me, I will actually say it's diplomacy. The ability to be able to negotiate through difficult situations and challenges are one of the key ingredients that helps me to develop my team.
Excellent. All right,
Hey,
colleagues.
Jason, just want to acknowledge a lot of the sentiments echoed in the chat as well around trust, team involvement, listening, psychological safety, which we can get into, shared vision, everyone's ideas and opinions matter, shared responsibility, communication, inclusiveness, listening, and the ability to learn. So lots of experiences out here already. Hopefully these are from your own positive experience with teams, but certainly a depth experience we can divine and draw out as we learn more about team effectiveness.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that, Gabe. So colleagues, I have a question for a couple of you who haven't spoken yet. When you look at the answers that you and your colleagues provided, is there any general theme that you begin seeing? Is there any way that your mind organizes these different ideas, these different essential conditions? Are you seeing a through?
Jason?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just there's a request to zoom in a little bit on the mural so we can see a little bit more.
Absolutely. Imo.
Thumbs up.
Imo Bakari. Any theme?
Effective people-centered leadership.
Could you repeat that, sir?
We need effective people-centered leadership.
People-centered leadership. So it's very much centered on the people of the team, the relationships within the team.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else, colleagues? Any other thing that stands out to you when you look at this collection of reflections?
It's not a general theme, but it's a major question. And it's, why can't we do this more consistently?
Who was that?
I'm just kind of like, this is
Who
what
was
I
that?
hear in so many different spaces. And you know how this goes with team building and conversations around being more diverse and appreciating eclectic people and all this kind of stuff. It's like, we know all these things, but we're still not capable of doing this consistently and sustaining. So it's like, why? You know, it's like such a big question for me. Every day I wonder, why is it not being done? And somebody mentioned, so I have a doctorate in psychology. And so when Alexandra, thank you for saying that psychological safety piece, because it's like, yeah, you know, like the Homer Simpson moment, So I'm just wondering, like, why, what is it that hinders us? And I'm genuinely asking you guys, Gabe and Jason, and I guess my teammates here, what is it what hinders us from being and doing and sustaining all these things if we know they all work?
You couldn't possibly give us a better segue for the next portion of this conversation. So I appreciate you for that. Mohit has a reflection to share, and then we'll address that to the best of our ability. So Mohit.
Quick one. I did want to point out a couple of things that talked about shared purpose and commitment to the goal and buy-in, because I do feel that sometimes one can create all the right conditions in a team and not having a goal that resonates and buy-in. I think that end of the spectrum is also quite interesting to look at. Yeah.
Excellent. So just to kind of build on what Mohit was saying, we kind of have, there's kind of an interesting grouping when we look at, let's just put that over there, team involvement. There is kind of an interesting separation between conditions that are, in a way, structural, if you will, have to do with the work of the team, the work that actually needs to get done. And then there are a number of them that relate to the environment or the climate that within the team, amongst the members. So Carrie Ann, I want to just come back to your question, because in a way, this is the question. Intuitively, I think that we all have very strong opinions about what allows for effective collaboration. And so this question of, and I love the way you framed it, why is it so difficult to create this consistently? What gets in the way of creating spaces where people both can work well together, but also feel like they can bring the fullness of themselves and feel safe and supported? Like, why does that have to be so hard? Essentially is the question that you're asking. And what Gabe and I would like to share with you is, in our opinion, some of the most rigorous, long-standing, inclusive research, comprehensive research on the field of team effectiveness. Essentially, it is research that is basically seeking to answer the question, what are the conditions that are most essential for groups of people to collaborate on work? What allows these people to do that successfully? And so before
you do that, Jason,
yeah,
can I just name a few things, because I think Carrie Ann just sort of like spoke to me like that was me 10 years ago. With this question of there's all these teams, and why don't they just get it? Why can't they just do it? And that set me personally on this journey of answering that question. And I think it's exciting as we can share with you what we figured out thus far and learned. And I will say that we stand on the shoulders of giants who've been doing what we know is real research on real teams in the workplace. And I want to just emphasize real teams and real workplace, because there is not a shortage of advice on leadership and team leadership and team. There's the whole sections of the bookstore dedicated to that. And I've read them all. And I will say what draws Jason and I to this is because ultimately what we've discovered is a lot of the things that have been shared around team development and leadership have been sort of like gut type of, oh, this is what you do when you have a team, and sort of like rote type of things of what you need to do. You need to do these 3 things. And what stood out to us is that a majority of the work out there that's suggesting how to help you work with teams and how to help leaders work with teams don't have a bibliography. There's no evidence behind what they're saying. Now, there's probably a lot of experience, and it's like, oh, well, when I worked on this team and the work did good, and the team did good, then this must work, right? There's no shortage of that. we want to point out is that we're bringing the science of teaming with the art of teaming together. And those two things will help you unlock and answer that question you're asking. But I just want to point out that this is kind of what we're getting at, is that we're going to share with you some sturdy research. And Jason and I, we didn't talk about it. We work with hundreds of teams at every level of organization, executive teams, management teams, work teams. And it's been exciting how applicable the things that we've learned are to how we can help them, and startling that gap between the science and action, because anyone can write a book, anyone can write a blog, anyone can have a YouTube channel. The question is it actually based on research? Is it based on what's actually happening in these complex social systems that we call teams?
Thank you for that. So basically what you're saying, Gabe, is that you and Jason are now my new mentors. Got it. I'm
happy
that.
to do that.
So we're going to give you a little bit of, we're going to dive into the specifics, but I just want to give you a little bit of context for how we come to this this question ourselves. So we are, both Gabe and I are part of a company called KITE. And KITE is a company that specializes in the field of team development within the humanitarian and international development field. It is not that we work exclusively within that field, but that we do have a passion for supporting organizations who are contributing to the betterment of the world, at least in our estimation. And so what we set out to do was to create a community of practitioners that were committed to learning about how to support these organizations in elevating the practice, their practice and their discourse around team leadership and team development. And part of what sparked the creation of KITE was that in our experience working as practitioners, facilitators, predominantly large group facilitations, one of the things that we realized is that most of the recurrent systemic issues that we saw in organizations had to do with a breakdown in collaboration. And that there really wasn't any clear and coherent framework guiding the way people organized their collaborative work. So that on one side. On the other hand, there was the realization that a lot of the groups of people that called themselves teams weren't really teams at all. They called themselves teams, they were groups of people, but these groups of people had no real clear understanding of what was the body of work, what was the purpose out there that was calling them to collaborate and to share accountability for certain deliverables. If you were to ask every single member of those teams, what is the purpose of this team? What are you collectively accountable for? What do you all share responsibility for? You would get, depending on the number of people on the team, that many answers. And this was consistent across the board, particularly at the leadership level. And so what I'm sharing with you right here, this little graphic, the two configurations that you're seeing there are really, that's what people typically call teams. They are groups of people that have very little affiliation with each other, that all basically report to the same person.
Jason, would you mind zooming in just a little bit more?
You know what? I wish I could. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do a little. Let me see if I can expand it a little bit.
There we go.
How about that? It's a little messy, but there you get the point. So as you can see in those two drawings, these are configurations, or these are ways of working where the individuals in the team have a direct relationship to their supervisor, but have very little to no relationship between each other. And what we found was needed in a lot of cases, in the vast majority of the cases, was a much more integrated, interconnected, dynamic and fluid way of working. So we set out to learn what is the best of our current understanding about how to do that. How do you design the type of collaboration that actually stands the test of time, that produces good results, and doesn't completely destroy the people in them, doesn't completely deplete them. So the research that Gabe was referencing is research that was conducted by two incredible researchers, Ruth Wagman and Richard Hackman, out of Harvard. They devoted over 40 years of their lives, of their work, studying this question: what are the essential conditions for team effectiveness? How do you do that? And so, first of all, they studied a variety of countless teams across many different industries. And what they first began to articulate was, when we talk about effectiveness, what are we really talking about? And they came up with a definition that is threefold. Now, Gabe, you jump in whenever. Don't hesitate to interrupt my flow. But the first most obvious dimension of effectiveness is what we call task performance. Are you getting the job done? Are you meeting the needs and the expectations of your clients and stakeholders? All right. Most obvious. If a team isn't doing this, they need to look at some things, right? So first and foremost, task performance. Are you getting the job done? But what they also found was that in really high performing teams, those teams weren't just focused on the results. They were also really keenly aware of how their way of working was impacting the satisfaction and the well-being of their members. You can imagine what happens in a team when task performance completely overshadows member satisfaction. Burnout, conflict, stress, the human dimension of the team, when neglected, has a cost. And so what you would see is that teams who focus exclusively on task performance might perform well for a few years, but then their ability to perform well together would be sapped or drained. So member satisfaction became another equally important dimension of team effectiveness. And lastly, and this is perhaps one of the most fascinating ones for me, highly effective teams were also teams, they got the job done, they took care of each other, but they also invested in ongoing learning. In other words, they were able over time to increase their capacity to manage higher and higher levels of complexity. So when, let's just say, for example, a global pandemic hits, those teams worked in such a way that where they were able to rapidly pivot and adapt to the situation. There are teams that get really good at doing one thing, and as soon as that something interrupts their flow or eliminates certain resources, they don't know how to adapt and to adjust. And so these three dimensions, quality of group process, task performance, member satisfaction, are what we mean by team effectiveness.
And just wanted to mention too that, again, these three ideas, these concepts are a judgment. It's a value judgment. And so oftentimes this is an inward facing question for you as a leader right now, which is which one of these is important or how important are they to you? We take these as equal parts. So you should care about each three, but also during the life of a team and during the life of the environment that you're in, you might need to flex to one or the other. At some point in time, a team might need to focus on task performance for a small stretch for a week or two at the, and compromise a little bit on work-life balance, but then being smart enough to know, wow, we just sprinted really hard. We need to take care of ourselves now for another 2 weeks, or noticing, hey, we're doing a lot of work, but I'm not doing it any better. Our quality is decreasing. What do we need to do together to focus on how we work together, our own processes for a short time before we pivot back to performance? So these are all levers that you're going to pull at any one time. They're not all ever static, but great teams are aware of the balance and the tensions that exists across these dimensions.
Andrea Christie, you had your hand up very patiently for a while. Just want to check in with you, see if you had any reactions to what we're saying.
It's okay. It's okay right for now.
Okay, all right. Don't forget, we'll come back to you. All right. So essentially, and Miguel, I see you there. Do you have something to add?
I have a question.
All right.
So where does the quality of leadership impact this? Because it seems to me if you have an excellent leader, it's going to work better. And if you have a bad leader, all of these can be affected. So what is that relationship between leadership and this three-pronged strategy?
Such a good question. Hold on to that. We're
Yeah.
coming. All right, we're coming to it. So, colleagues, so this is what we just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're talking about when we talk about team effectiveness and what the research that we're referencing was really looking at. So the results of these 4 decades of research yielded a model that the researchers refer to as the 6 conditions for team effectiveness. And essentially, the logic of this model is that there are 3 conditions that are absolutely essential. If you do not have these, a team cannot perform effectively. And then once those are established, there are 3 additional conditions that are called the enablers that allow for the team to accelerate their performance and enhance it. Okay, so in terms of primacy, in terms of hierarchy, we see that the essentials are kind of the foundation, the enablers are what we build on top of that. And so we're just going to take very briefly, we're going to explain what these essentials and enablers are, and then move into some concrete examples of what this actually has looked like in our practice with teams. All right. So number 1, and this may sound painfully obvious, but the first condition that the researchers identified was what they refer to as real team. In other words, are you as a group interdependent? Like, is there an area of work that calls you, that demands, that requires you to come together and collaborate on it? If there isn't an area of collaborative work, then don't be a team, essentially. The level of complexity in becoming a team and becoming a good team is great. Even under the best conditions, it is great. And so the first condition was really getting clear about what is the area, what is the nature of our interdependence or lack thereof in this group. If you determine that there are clear areas of collaborative work that require these people to work together, then we move on to the second essential condition, which is articulating what specifically those areas of collaborative work are. The word compelling purpose sounds very grand. We are not talking about a vision. We are not talking about some aspirational value. We are talking about the specific functions, tasks, and desired impact of the team. Colleagues, 99.9% of the teams that we have worked with do not have a compelling purpose. They have not gone through the sometimes painstaking work of identifying and aligning around what that collaborative work is. What I'm about to say is probably going to resonate with at least half of you. But in the absence of a compelling purpose, when teams come together, what they spend most of their time doing is sharing updates about what they're doing individually. Carrie Ann, I'm watching you and I see that this is resonating, and I'm sure you're not alone. But this is the default mode of operation of most teams that we work with, even teams at the highest, most senior levels. A team meeting is essentially an opportunity for people to share updates. And the reason that happens is because no one has ever taken the time to say, aside from all of the things that we're doing individually, there are certain things that simply cannot be done unless we collaborate. Compelling purpose is a clear articulation and alignment around those collaborative tasks. And lastly, once you've identified what the purpose of this team is, in other words, what brings this team into existence, you need to make sure that you have the right people to deliver on it. And being the right person isn't just being a senior member of the office. We're looking at two things. One, do you have the technical expertise to contribute meaningfully to the work that's being done? And second of all, do you have the emotional and interpersonal maturity to collaborate effectively? Colleagues, those two things often do not come together. There are many technically brilliant people that unfortunately have never really valued the interpersonal skills required to collaborate. And so as a member, as a team leader, or as someone participating in the design of the team, yes, you want people who are technically sound. You also want people who won't undermine the collaborative process. The diversity of your team is a vital element. And this is diversity in skill, but it is also diversity in the perspectives and the ability of the team to manage complexity. If you are a team of 10 white men, your capacity to manage complexity is limited based on the narrowness of your perspective. And so, and this goes for any composition. And so the diversity of the team is really critical in that team's ability to adapt, to create, and to navigate the difficult situations that Kingsley mentioned. So I'm just going to stop there and get some reactions. Gabe, please weigh in if you feel I missed anything. But colleagues, these are the three components, the three core components of what we call team design. These three questions: are you a real team? If so, do you have a clear and aligned, compelling purpose? Do you have the right people to deliver on that purpose? These are three questions that most of the teams that we work with have never asked themselves. And
I'm going to just, okay.
Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Jason, finish it. So I'm just going to say one thing about these three conditions, and it took me a while to wrap my head around it, but I'm going to throw it out there because we've got several weeks to digest this statement. It turns out that if you're in a situation where there's work to be done and you cannot put these three things in place, you can't have a real team, you can't have a compelling purpose, or there isn't one, or the right people don't exist or are not available. Your alternative, your best alternative, is to not treat those people as a team and do the work another way. And what I mean by that is not all groups that do work are teams. You probably heard of an operating committee. You probably heard of a working group. There's ways in which you can get people together to accomplish something where they are not interdependent. And that is probably your best route to move forward if you can't put these things in place, because it'll be super frustrating to you as a leader and as to the team members if you're trying to force interdependence when the conditions aren't there for it to be worthwhile for everybody. So I just want to throw out there that what Ruth Wagman says, what J. Richard Hackman says, is that if you can't put these conditions in place, you are better off going about the work with something other than a team. There are other ways to get the work done. They could be individually assigned, it could be disaggregated, but you cannot ask people to, hey, rah, 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 we're a team, let's all get together, let's all trust each other, when these conditions don't exist.
So, and just to add to what Gabe just said, the reality is that even if you call yourself a team, the likelihood is that is how you're operating. You're just spending a lot more time in meetings than you probably have to. Right? Does that making sense? Miguel, you have a comment?
Yes, I was really struck by your comment about when teams think that they're a team because they're updating one another. And it was like, holy mackerel, wow. And the question I have is, what kind of conversations do real teams have? What does that look like?
I'm loving the question, Miguel. And the simple answer is they talk about the work they're doing together. They're consulting, they're creating, they're strategizing, They're making decisions. They're doing things that actually require all of them to be present and not something they could just do on a Slack channel or on a Google Doc, right? So it's actually, the conversations become, once a team has clearly articulated what their compelling purpose is, it allows them then to have a clear focus for their time together and their time apart, right? Because the life of the team doesn't simply reside in the team meeting. But it's a great question. So Gabe, I wanna, sorry, just before I call Gabe, Andrea?
Yes.
Do you have a comment or a question? I just didn't want to forget about you.
All right, I'm just here listening and thinking, how important do you think past experience with team members that you would have been associated with in a previous team, and the same persons are in the current team that is being formed? How if important do you think past experiences, and should you be reflecting on those past experiences, whether they're good or bad? But most times the bad experiences, of course, in terms of formulating this team and heading into the teamwork.
Yeah. I love the question. And Alexandra, I see your hand up and I see you nodding, and I'm wondering if there's something that's resonating about what Andrea just said. No, it's slightly, okay. Anyway, feel free to share, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Alexandra.
No, you continue. Okay, go ahead, and I'll ask.
All right, Rehema, did you have a comment on that point? Go ahead, please. There you go.
Hello. My name is Rehema Nanyonga, and I'm from Uganda in East Africa. I mean, I understand, and I completely resonate with especially the three main pillars of the team. But the truth is that I am not yet there. I've been a founder for 10 years. I started a program for as a teenager, and now I'm just trying to formalize and structure and creating all these different elements that are not based on a team that is just sort of empathizing with me, but really skilled and motivated towards the vision of the nonprofit that I'm running. And it's really, really difficult. So I know that I think from your perspective, I'm at the very low level of really trying to do things in a professional way. So I don't know if you have any advice for me.
I'm gonna jump here and give you and every other leader here just permission to not be so hard on yourself, because actually, so again, what Richard, what our researchers and our thought leaders have told us about it, about teaming, is that you don't have to have a team to accomplish work. Not all types of work require a team. And the reason that people don't have them, and actually Jason and I tell people all the time, don't have a team for this type of work. It's more effort, it's more heartache than it's worth for you right now. Figure out how to go about accomplishing this goal with something that doesn't require the degree of interdependence and social commitment that a team takes. So it's okay, there's different levels of work. So what we do is we look at the work and we say, what does the work require of you? If the work requires you to be interdependent, then darn it, you should be interdependent. And if you're not, then that outcome isn't gonna work out for you. And if the work is not interdependent, then don't create a bunch of rah, we're a team, kumbaya type of stuff here. It's okay to not make everyone a team. So what we look at as the work, what does the work require? What does the challenge require? What does the purpose require? And then let's look at the people and the resources and the constraints you have available and make the best out of the situation.
Thank you.
Alexandra?
Yes, no, I was just going to say that was because that was my question. And yes, it's based on experience. That definitely what you state there, the compelling purpose is what makes the team. It's not giving less importance of the other ones, of the other essential conditions, but it's the type of purpose that makes each member of the group interdependent in order to work as a team, because I've seen that. If you're structurally determined within a team, either at your job or your company or whatever it is, you could be part of that structure, but not necessarily work as a team because you don't have that compelling purpose. And I agree also that the compelling purpose is not like an aspirational, yeah, we would like as a foundation do this. No. It's a specific task. I'm getting a specific task where you need all of them interacting and working together. So it's more of that. It's just so well put. I just want to congratulate you guys. Everything just resonates so well. I'm like, yes, that is it. Because I've seen working, I've seen it work, and I've seen not work. And yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah. Good.
Kingsley, I see you. We're gonna move on, and we'll call on you in just a sec. It's important, I think, at this stage, and I know we're coming up to time. If you notice, when we first asked you what are the essential conditions for team effectiveness based on your experience, I'm just going to refer back to what you shared. Colleagues, this actually is a very accurate reflection of what we find when we kind of examine some of the assumptions that people have about collaboration. And the thing that stands out is that a lot of people think about teaming as a function of the quality of your relationships. Do I trust people? Do I respect people? Do I like people? Do I feel safe in their presence? Do I feel permission to be my full self, to bring my expertise and the reality is, colleagues, that even though these things are important, a lot of times we're trying to cultivate them in the context of a poorly designed system, right? So in the absence of a clear purpose, what is the point of talking about honesty? If you really have no real need or clear imperative to collaborate with that person, leave that person alone, right? So don't force collaboration where it's not needed. It's just kind of what Gabe was saying. But I think that a lot of times, this emphasis on the relational dimension of teaming creates a lot of confusion because it doesn't confront the fact that so many teams do not have a sound structure in place. We have not gotten concrete about the work that needs to be done, and we have not gotten concrete about the agreements that we want to establish with each other. In the absence of that, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars and hours of your time trying to create psychological safety, and colleagues, it may be there one day and gone the next. And so our value proposition is that structure drives behavior. The structures that you put in place are your surest investment or the greatest predictor of team resilience, of team well-being and team performance than anything else. And that is not to say that other things aren't important. Psychological safety is important, but it is something that is cultivated in the course of the work, and it is not something that you can just create at the outset. And so for this reason, when we talk about the enablers, we're talking about, and I'll just go through this very briefly, sound structure relates to, do you have clear norms about how that are guiding your internal interactions? Is the size of your team appropriate for the work that you're doing? Supportive context, the second to the right, has to do with, does your team function in an organizational environment that actually incentivizes collaboration? Most of you work in organizations where you are evaluated and promoted and rewarded based purely on your individual effort. There is no real mechanism in most organizations to reward brilliant collaboration. And yet some of the most important work that your organizations are doing are collaborative in nature. So you can't effectively split that pie or that pizza and expect to have the vibrant, dynamic culture of collaboration that is often required to do the work well. Because ultimately, if you're just rewarding people based on what they do individually, you're incentivizing them not to collaborate. Lastly, once these first 5 conditions are in place, you've established you have a real team, you have a clear, compelling purpose, you have the right people, or at least moderately the right people to deliver on this purpose. You have clear agreements and norms that guide your interactions, and you have a moderately supportive organizational environment, let's just say. Then hiring external support to coach your work, the flow of your work, your communication, how you learn, how you make decisions. Hiring an external or an internal or external team coach might be really helpful. What the research is very clear about is that if you try to coach a team that does not have a clear design, you are creating a distraction and noise. Design the team first, then coach it. And that is the work that is work that can fall to an external consultant, such as ourselves, or it can fall to a team leader or a team member that is skilled in that area.
I just need to add one more thing before we open up, which is just I don't want to get to a comment that was made earlier. So one, team coaching, as it's shown on the picture here, is that it's a function of a team, not a role. So team coaching can be performed by anyone, the leader or a team member, or even an external party that's not an official coach. It's someone who's providing helpful interventions in a way that's helping the group perform better. The last comment I'll make is someone mentioned about leadership. And Jason, is it okay if I kind of spill the beans on leadership?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So leadership personally is not a role, it's a function of a team, it's a function of a system. All right. So what we call an active team leadership is anyone, no matter who they are, where they come from, inside or outside the team, that helps put these 6 conditions in place. And you could have a person that's a manager that's really awesome at this. And you could have someone this is not their forte, but they might leverage other people on the team or other people outside of the team to help put these things in place. That is our definition of team leadership, is putting these things in place to enable a team to perform brilliantly, set them up to success, give them the structure they need to perform well. That is how we view leadership. So a lot of times people describe leadership as attributes. They're courageous. They're articulate. Those might be okay, but they are only helpful to a team in service of a team. Are you courageous in the fact that you're putting these things in place? Or are you courageous just because it makes you look better that you're articulate and well-spoken and whatever, right? Or you're because you hold a position. So we want to challenge all of you in thinking about what team leadership means as not just the role or the position, but what does it actually look like? And move away from leadership as an attribute to more as a function and an action that's putting something in place for something for a group of people to succeed.
The question going back to the question that Miguel asked, and I see you, Kingsley, we'll come to you in just a sec. But the question that you asked, Miguel, was, does a good leader matter? And that is actually a much more complex question than you would think. Because obviously, in our work, we encounter leaders who are delights to work with, and other leaders who are very, very difficult to work with, right? And this is largely because we work in systems that place a lot of authority on individual leaders, right? So yes, an individual leader can undermine an entire team, or they can be an incredible enabler of that team. But really, that has less to do, as Gabe was saying, about their charisma and how inspiring they are, and more about their ability to bring clarity and alignment to their team's understanding of the work that needs to be done. Kingsley, thank you for waiting patiently. You're on mute, sir.
Can't hear you yet, Kingsley.
Hi, good evening. It's still Kingsley from Nigeria, actually. All right, I was going to ask, sorry for taking you a bit back. I was going to ask if there's actually a clear-cut difference between a working group and a team?
Yes, yes, and I
Can I
will
give you a quick example?
go
Just a
for it.
very
Go for
quick
it.
example. So, any familiar with the concept of a call center? So in a call center, individual people sit on individual desks and answer individual calls. And that's what they do all day. And they don't have to talk to each other to solve problems. That's sort of the easiest understanding of a working group. They don't have to collaborate with each other to solve these problems. They have all the information they need. They have all the scripts. They have all the access to the tools they need. They don't have to do that. And what we're saying is, don't treat those people like they're a team and say, hey, rah, 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 we're all in this together. We all have to help each other out, when they're not. They're not help. The task doesn't require them to do it. They actually have all the access and tools they need to do that. So that's a working group. And the opposite of that would be people that are solving like a problem, right? Or maybe it's a marketing team who actually has to work together, come up with a marketing program where these different skills of graphic design and other things have to come in place to create a finished product. Those are two different spectrums of work that require different levels of collaboration.
Thanks, Gabe. Colleagues, we are almost at the hour. And so I just very, very quickly, Ruth Wagman and Richard Hackman created a diagnostic tool called the Team Diagnostic Survey. When relevant, it is an instrument that we apply in our work with teams. In this model, you can see this is kind of a summary of the 6 conditions model. Green denotes an area of strength, yellow, orange, red, increasing areas of concern. What you're seeing here is the scores of almost every team we work with. They recognize, they believe that they are a real team, but they do not have a compelling purpose. They are not sure whether they have the right people. They do not operate in a supportive context, and the structure is not sound or clear. So, Carrie Ann, back to your question. Why is this so hard? Here's the beginning of your answer. There is a widespread neglect of the conditions that are essential to teams performing well.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense.
Even teams that are doing some of the most important life-saving work in the world are operating in spite of the absence of these conditions and at great personal cost to themselves and to their clients.
Yeah.
So this is, just to give you a sense. We would love to get more into the specifics of the actual work, but that's why we have a course for you all. So in collaboration with the University for Peace Center for Executive Education, KITE will be facilitating, Gabe and I will be co-facilitating a course called Building Effective Teams, Design for Success. It is really about equipping people to design their collaboration more intentionally and thoughtfully. And so the UPeace website has the description of the course, but as you can see, the themes are really about the conceptual and practical tools that team leadership requires, effective team leadership requires. And so we'll be working with you to step by step, if you're a team leader or a team member, more effectively and systematically design the collaboration that your organization, your team, your business, your foundation, Rehema, is needing. All right. So that will be starting in November 2nd to the 29th. Those of you interested in the course, we welcome you to refer to the UPeace website. Hannah will give you all the information that you need. Colleagues, it has been an absolute pleasure to be with you during this hour. Thank you so much for joining and for staying on, all those 34 of you that stayed. On behalf of Gabe and myself, thank you very, very much. Hannah?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jason and Gabe. This has just been an amazing session. I think you offer some really valuable material and food for thought for everyone in the room. You know, so many people who engage, so many people who are doing the head nod, so many aha moments, I think, for a lot of people here to think differently about team effectiveness, both in terms of what it means and how to get there. So I think because you all want to learn more, again, the course, like Jason said, starts on November 2nd. I'm going to go ahead and put in the website and my contact information into the chat box. So you can go ahead and learn more and register if you'd like. You will be receiving a follow-up email with this recording as well. And a huge thank you to everyone who was able to join us for this session. I know you're all busy people taking out time in your day to really rally around an important topic like this. So an invitation to continue the conversation with myself, with Jason and with Gabe, and just a huge thank you for being here today.